There is a huge difference between the 5D plane and the 4D plane when it comes to mysticism. 5D, we don't forget that we are human babies first. And so when we learn about our mind, the brain, and relationships, it's a lot of really great discoveries. And on that note, with our clairs, what is even more amazing is we do not jump ship, cancel people, lose people. The whole part of your spirituality awakening, being where you will vibe at different frequencies. Yes, one, you're only going to vibe at your enlightenment frequency once you get a whole 3-year-old heart, your own 3-year-old. Like I have my own 3-year-old. Now, I was lucky personally. I didn't actually separate from Purusha Prakriti. My fondest memory is when I was about 3 or 4. Thank you to my hypnotherapist. I actually recently discovered this. I was like, okay, this is making a lot of sense. Once I put 2 and 2 together, no, it's because of my somatics, trauma-informed, somatic experiencing, attachment, all of my educational courses to support people to inspire their higher human potential, to be yourself and go with the flow, to know mindset is everything. And mindset is everything, actually, because the implicit memory that comes up, it's all here. So some people will think, nope, mindset's not anything. It's the external. It's my finances, it's the government, it's all the stories. So the stories are for those who have an adaptive child approach to life. They will point a finger, they will shame, blame, fault, and some revenge. They use the excuse of the devil and demons and evil. It's not an excuse per se, because I do know of that plane. Again, 5D mystic here. So yes, there's a plane, it's called shared consciousness. Neuroscientists look into it, physicists look into it, and they're not hiding anything. They're just doing what any researchers will do, is continue to conduct empirical data. Now, again, the story, little breadcrumbs, we all can create our breadcrumb trail, and that's why any person can create their subjective story of the data. So the grown-ups, though, we like to, thank you, Terry Real, as he points out when he's actually explaining how grown-up couples work things out. We can work it out, yes. Only grown-up couples know what actual love is, by the way. And when I say grown-up, it's not the age. The 3-year-old whole heart. And that's because your implicit memory builds all the way up till you're 3 years of age. Then explicit memory starts. So you're a bunch of sensations. And if you don't feel compassionate, well, that's an indication that there's an attachment wound and or potential rupture. And that's where our 3-year-old is what happens. We start walking, we start moving, and as every one of those lovely trauma experts has pointed out, we start getting yelled at. And that's the posture of shame. Once you, and that's where we can also have charge states, or we do have charge states, not can. They all stay there. So when you care about being a human baby first, or just being human, 5D mystics in town, we get excited about also being the star babies, but we know we're all star babies because we're all pieces of light. So we don't make it out to be some special category of there being only 144,000. We don't get fixated on the stories. We're like, wow, this is amazing. We have shared consciousness experiences with our oversoul, with people. So fighting for anything involves no fighting whatsoever. And we don't sacrifice either. However, there is a depth of knowing about choice points. And so when the ego is in town, and every one of us has one, guess who's there? Your 3-year-old. And if you don't translate your 3-year-old to I'm compassionate about myself, guess what? You're not whole yet. So attachment system, we all have one. You also have an amygdala. You have an embodied brain, like I do. I love learning, by the way. I'm educated, and I'll keep being educated, and I love adding up data points without the story. Because the subjective story here is every person can achieve that enlightenment soul age group. Sadhguru has said it. Neuroscientists have said it. But what I know is that the people who are flaunting their mantles have not achieved it yet. If they're not all singing Kumbaya with humanity and saying, let's help the environment. Let's help the countries come together. Woohoo! And actually, like, rejoicing. I'm maintaining a calm right now. Like, inside of me every day, I'm like, wow, ecstasy all over the place. And no, I don't do human suffering. I do human emotions, though. And the real deal is once you're moving beyond all supernatural and you just relate to the big ball of energy, it's like, wow, so much more amazing. But you know what's even more amazing is Patrick McNamara. I love that neuroscience man, and I haven't even gotten the pleasure to meet him or read his book yet. But I love that he's proven there's no demon inside the body of a person, because that always felt like a very lame excuse for people to go around doing things, and it's not even an excuse. You know what I know? This is the most saddest part, is that it's terrifying to go in here for the 3-year-old who's grown up without knowing about their first 18 months of life. I know a lot of people in specific places, when they go to get helped by compassion-based therapists, like Russell Coates shares a story, and he's in prison supporting, I forget what group of people, to try and work with their anger, so anger management. And they turn to him, this is his story, and they say, "You going to teach us about compassion? Don't you know we're the scum of the earth?" And I don't know what else happened, but I remember, wow, I'm so happy that he's going there. And again, the lame excuse, as a mystic who does navigate the planes and has a very specific relationship with all of the angels and all of what we will have heard. Well, did anybody hear about when you move out of 4D bandwidth to 5D bandwidth, what happens? I love the alchemist lady. She explains it really well. The dismantling. So it's not dismantling, though, in a way of you cease to believe in something. So you don't believe. I got asked, are you religious? Kind of. I'm beyond religion. I'm beyond spirituality. I know that it's all a lot of different topics, and I love subject matters. So fighting for love, very easy with a loving heart. Why? Let's get back to that attachment system. It is a very sensitive system, and if you don't get consistent contingent communication the first 18 months of your life, and if you don't have a household where you are actually tended to, but instead you have emotional neglect and or traumatic neglect and or systemic neglect and a lot of other neglects, and your brain can't develop, because it does develop, but some areas don't develop. You don't get stimuli. And here's why 4D with their energy vampires, dark auras, and their spiritual warfare. What's up? Separation consciousness. I thought you knew all about it, 4D mystics. I see you can't hear yourselves when you're in the story. Do you know why? Do you know what happens when you're not in your ventral vagal state? Nervous system. Thank you, Stephen Porges. Your ears turn down. You know what happens to your brain when you're in safety behavior? Your frontal lobes, they push down. And the amygdala is getting your neuroplasticity. Oh, I love when people say, I'm going to rewire my brain. You don't know how to use your brain yet, because you're still acting like a dickwad to people by calling them names instead of saying, wow, they're a human baby, and I don't know your life, and I know my life, and let me learn about being compassionate first, because otherwise my 3-year-old is a heartbroken 3-year-old. So when people are being dickwads to each other from the heart, and oh yes, I've met them. They're always fascinating. And since I was a teenager, I'm like, wow, I have a muscle here. Lo and behold, can't stab it unless you have an actual knife. And if I'm smart enough, I'll run away the minute I see you with a knife running after me. And here's where sensationalization, anyone? 4D loves to do it, especially when they're getting into their whole twin flame saga. Yes, apparently the mind can be controlled, but they can have clairs enough to see. This is the part. There's all these disconnects because a person's getting emotional because of an attachment system that longs to be seen, to be soothed. It's the infant you, so that you can feel safe and then secure to be yourself. In your body, by the way, first of your first intimate relationship, it's going to be your own mind, masculine, with your own feminine body, not touching anything. Actual being able to translate your left and right mode. So, on a serious note, when you do need support, there's great mental health professionals. Thank you, Daniel Siegel, for teaching me all about the mind and the brain, the embodied brain, and relationships. And Tara Reel, Bezel van der Kolk, they're all Stephen Porges. Peter Levine, you all should look him up. The 4D mystics, I'm saying, because you can't block your spirituality growth or process. You can only stall moving into adult land. How? Well, they need to be lost because they don't vibe like me, and they are not doing whatever it is of a lame excuse of a teenager who, again, is a teenager, because if you can't handle that people have their own lives and you're still needing people in your life, you haven't handled your attachment system. And although it's amazingly, of course, to be around people, to need them emotionally is that attachment system that longs. Now, your 3-year-old is an adult once you get to be an adult. And as Terry Real points out, you don't get abandoned as an adult, you get abandoned as a kid. And he does partner therapy, but all relationships, minus the drama, is you're an independent adult and so am I. We don't need to be filtering our words or doing things in a way of, unless you want to stay that way. And some people do, but some people, we're 5D mystics, we're functional adults. We enjoy the actual ability to say love is not about sacrifice. It's about actually being compassionate and then equanimous. And it's amazing when you're in an enlightenment vibration, by the way, because you're not getting into anger, which also dumbs you down, FYI. So we might have a part 2 in the meantime. Tune in if you want more.